Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about what's going on in Florida as Governor Ron DeSantis fires back about the NAACP travel advisory, bringing my home city of Baltimore into the conversation. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Jason Nichols to get some thoughts on that. Also, we're going to be talking to the mayor, the first black mayor of Waterloo, Iowa, Mayor Quentin Hart, to talk to us about what's happening in the big state, especially as it relates to the primary election for the presidential election. So we'll have that conversation. And then later, we're going to be checking in with Dr. Bridget for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. So folks, stay with us. A lot to get through right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Oh, my goodness, I am very, very excited for today's discussion, folks. We got a lot to get through as we talk. Let me get myself together here. Got my little pen. Getting myself together. Folks, it is Monday. Happy Monday. Big shout out to my online culture crew that's checking in. And crew, I would love to hear from you. Make sure you do the same if this is your first time or if this is your 1,000th time of watching the show. Well, have we had that many shows? I think so. Definitely, you can check us out on YouTube as we're streaming live on YouTube right now. Check us out under Roland Martin's YouTube page, and you'll find all of the latest installments of the culture, and of course all of the big shows here on the Black Star Network. But you can definitely check us out as we're streaming live on that chat. And of course, we're streaming live on blackstarnetwork.com and our big distributor, Amazon News. So thank y'all so much for being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, folks, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's happening out of the state of Florida. Y'all remember that last week we talked about the travel advisory that the NAACP put out there to advise black folks who are planning to come to the state, planning to vacation in the state, to just be advised that the state is not friendly right now. The state is not friendly to black folks coming into the state, and just to be recognized that the way the policies are, the way the climate is down there in Florida, just not friendly. Well, the NAACP put out that word, and of course, Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, decided to respond back to this whole thing. And I wanted to just share with you what he said, because he brought in my home city. Why? I do not know, folks. I absolutely do not know. But this is a common theme that we see in the talking points of certain folks, where they want to try to bring in discussions about violence and guns instead of dealing with the matter at hand. But take a look at this. Here's the first thing. This is coming out of NBC News. Take a look at this, folks, where they said that last month the NAACP issued a national travel advisory warning Americans about visiting Florida in response to what it described as DeSantis' push to erase Black history and to restrict diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in Florida schools. DeSantis defended himself Thursday, saying that Florida's crime rate is at a 50-year low and that Black students perform well in the state because of government support for private school vouchers. Ultimately, his framing amounts to a shorthand for the view that subsidies for school choice will improve educational outcomes for students of color and lead to lower gun violence. He also said, if you're in Baltimore or Chicago, these kids have a better chance of getting shot than getting a first-class education. If you're in Baltimore or Chicago, these kids have a better chance of getting shot than getting a first-class education. Wow. Okay. The fact that is funny about this, folks, is he's acting like the state of Florida is the safest place for black boys and girls to be in. That's the funny part for one. But then when you look at the rate, and I'm not gonna just sugarcoat this. Look, education across this city, across this country, is hurting. Okay, public education. That's why so many black folks are having discussions about charter schools, homeschooling, independent schools, all of these things, right? Because we're seeing that the public school system is not doing enough. But does that mean that your child has a better chance of getting shot than graduating, going to school? No, it does not. Even though the only statistic that was referenced in this piece was that there was a federal education department report showing that for Baltimore, only 4% of black fourth graders were rated proficient in math in the 2022 National Assessment of Educational Progress. Another 30% were rated as having a basic achievement level. Now, look, we can't put Baltimore, Mr. DeSantis. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to just pill out any black city that's run by a Democrat and bring it into the conversation. Because we could say the same thing about the state of Florida. What is the quality of education in the state of Florida? Especially given you're not empowering black students with understanding about who they are and then where they come from, that you're doing everything in your power to ensure that they get an education that's rooted in whiteness instead of an education that is rooted in diversity, rooted in acknowledgement. So what are we really talking about here? And let's not shy away from the fact that you're seeing more and more gun violence in this country, especially mass shootings, where there have been, as we have shared on this show, folks, over 260 mass shooting incidents in America thus far. How are folks getting guns? And more importantly, states like the state of Florida, where they have an open carry, stand your ground policy in place, does this make people safer? Does this truly show that people are more educated or that they are moving further along in the socio-economic space or the socio-economic life? No. Florida is suffering, folks. Black children, black people, brown children, brown people, poor whites, folks are suffering in the state. And not just because of education. Not just because of education. Now, we can play the diversion game. We can play, oh, look at this and not consider that. We can play those games. You know what I mean? We can play those games. But the fact remains, folks, that there is a problem in this country. And a person like a Ron DeSantis just doesn't want to confront that. He'd rather be in denial. He'd rather run from it instead of looking at it and dealing with it as a man in leadership really should. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation about this. We'll also be checking in with the mayor of Waterloo, Iowa, the first black mayor, the first black person to be mayor of Waterloo, Iowa, Mayor Quentin Hart. And we want to hear from you. Join us in the conversation on YouTube as we're streaming live. And of course, stay tuned, folks. We got a lot to get to on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause
Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's talk about this. I was talking about the situation with Governor Ron DeSantis, how he is firing back about the NAACP travel advisory. That just is a way for the NAACP to warn black folks that are coming to the state, warn black voters that are in the state that this is a very critical time for the state of Florida. And so the governor of Florida, he responded last week, and I wanted to just kind of mention this because he brings up my hometown of Baltimore. He just want to pull it out of his ass and say, "Oh, look at Baltimore! Look at the achievement rate in Baltimore. You got a better chance of getting shot than you are to get some level of education, some quality education." What city in America? Let's look at what city in the state of Florida is really educating children at such a high level in the public school system, unfortunately. We could probably pick out 1,000 cities, folks. Which city? It's not just affecting Baltimore. It's not just affecting Chicago. It's all over the country. And you know, part of the reason why is that when you do not teach a child, when you withhold understanding, truth, facts, and all of those things, when you are trying to teach a child to be a slave instead of a child to be a critical thinking human being that can make some decisions for themselves, that can feel empowered about their history, and more importantly, having a vision about what the future should be, when you're not giving them the tools to do that, then what do you expect? All right, I got my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, checking in for a few moments with us today, and I'm happy to have my brother. Because Ron DeSantis is talking out the side of his mouth, talking about Baltimore, talking about Chicago. But this is the talking point, bro. I see this Republicans and sometimes some Democrats. Like, this is the talking point that you want to kind of like skirt around the issue of what we're seeing here in the state of Florida. What's your take on this, Doc?
So first of all, you know, I was personally offended when he starts calling out Baltimore. And again, he's comparing a state. He's comparing a state to a city. A relatively, you know, small city now. I mean, we're under 600,000 people, and comparing it to the state of Florida, which is what, the third or fourth largest state in the country. So I think that's kind of ridiculous. And if you want to look at crime and murders, I think he should start thinking about Jacksonville, Florida. And that's one of the reasons why Republicans and the Republican candidate with a Ron DeSantis endorsement lost, in part because people were like, there's a lot of crime here. Who's in charge? And it was Republicans. So if you were to go to certain parts of Florida, since you want to compare Baltimore, let's go to Opelika. Let's go to Carroll City. Let's go to, some of these other areas to Overtown. And you would find a lot of the poverty and desperation that you find in many of the impoverished areas around the country. If you look at any list of crime, you will find that Chicago doesn't even rank in the top 10 anywhere. You know, New York is one of the safest cities in the world, not just in the country. Not only is it the safest big city in the country, it's the safest city in the world, the 9th safest city in the world, big city. So this idea that there's all this crime in these Democratic-run cities, you are much safer in the state of New York than you are in the state of Oklahoma. And guess what? Oklahoma has 2 major cities. Tulsa and Oklahoma City,
Right.
both run by Republicans. And guess what? They have high crime, high murder rates. And why is that? Because we know what happened in Tulsa that destroyed those communities, destroyed the means of production for Black communities and other things, and created generational poverty in that city. So again, they like to toss out, talking points about this or that. Now, I will say, shutting down schools in hindsight for long periods of time did have some effects on learning for young people. That's just a reality that we have to actually bear. I can say it as a parent that shutting down schools for a while and the schools system that opened earlier, like places like Florida, did get a little bit of a head start, whereas the rest of the country, struggled because of shutting down those schools. Now we understand the virus a little better, and we understand certain things a little bit better. So things are a little different. But this idea that Florida somehow does education better is absolutely absurd. In terms of travel advisory, I'll just really quickly want to say, Black folks, and I think I said it on your show last week, Black folks, they don't even respect you. They don't respect your money. They don't respect your dollars. And like I said, Christina Pushaw was like, yeah, Black people are going to come to Urban Beach Week anyway. Don't spend your money in Florida. Don't go to South Beach. Don't go to Daytona Beach. We have beaches in Maryland. Come where the Black governor here respects you. Go where the governor respects you out there in California. Spend your money other places rather than going to a state where the leadership doesn't respect you or your history. That means they don't respect your dollars and don't deserve your money. Don't let them do this. The immigrants recognize. The immigrants had a day without immigrants. Those farmers are angry because there's no one out there picking those Florida oranges. We need to also do that and spend our money in other states, in other places. There are other beaches, yes, in Maryland, we don't have the palm trees, but we got water, we got sand, we got what you need. We got mountains, we got whatever it is that you like. Come to Maryland, come to a state that actually respects you for your vacation. Don't spend it in Florida.
So what you're talking about, and real quick, Doc, before we take our next pause, what you're talking about is really some level of boycott, that we abstaining ourselves from being in the space. We abstaining ourselves from spending money. What you're talking about is boycott. And I know when I talked to my sister Suzette Speaks last week, she said that the NAACP was not calling for economic boycott. It was more of a call to action to get Black voters and folks, make them aware. But she doesn't believe, because she's in those spaces down in Miami, she doesn't believe that this was a call for a boycott. But a lot of us outside of the state of Florida, it makes it seem like it's a boycott. Like if you're telling us not to come to the state during this travel season of the summer, doing all this other stuff, that sounds like a boycott. Now, you may not want to put it out there because of, because of political correctness. It could be because of policy or whatever the case may be. But should we really start saying that this is a boycott because of policies that folks like DeSantis and other folks are putting in place for the state of Florida?
So I think, the NAACP has to be careful because there are Black-owned businesses in Florida, and they don't want for people to boycott and then harm the very, Black businesses that have started throughout the state. And I understand that position. So they've said, we're not calling for a boycott. I think we should, those of us who are outside of Florida, should understand it that way. We should, there's an old movie that I'm sure you and I both remember that said, money talks, BS runs the marathon. And I believe, that if we as Black people did what the right does, when you saw they didn't like Bud Light, all Bud Light did was put somebody's face on a couple of limited cans that weren't even getting sold in stores. And they lost $9 billion. Target put some clothes with a rainbow on it. They lost $10 billion. When are we going to do the right thing with our money and say, no, you don't get my money if you don't respect me? And that's all I'm saying is, yes, maybe the NAACP isn't calling for a boycott, but we should call for a boycott of Florida. Yes, South Beach is nice. Yes, there are nice places to go, nice businesses, but you shouldn't spend your money anywhere that doesn't respect you or your dollars. That's my point.
Well, let me do this. Let me take a quick pause. But Corinna, my sister, you down in Florida too. You always check in. She said, I'm not against a boycott, but it must be organized. I highly doubt any economic loss will roll back the egregious legislation in Florida. So we will have to see, because at the end of, again, they did not call for a boycott, but voices like a Dr. Jason Nichols, I'm throwing myself into the mix. Yeah, why not? Why not? I get what the NAACP is saying. You support black businesses. Mimi, I saw your comment. You down there in Jacksonville, Pretty Brown Mimi 726. She said, greetings down from Jacksonville. She said, Doc, she didn't appreciate you throwing Jacksonville under the bus, but it is true. She said it's sad, but true. But she said support black businesses down in Florida. If you're in Florida, you should be supporting black businesses. If you're outside of Florida, what we're saying is, while adding new money to a state that is showing that our lives, it doesn't matter. Folks, I got to take this quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation with Dr. Jason Nichols. We're also going to check in with the mayor of Waterloo, Iowa, the first black mayor of Waterloo, Iowa. His name is Mayor Quentin Hart, and I'm so excited to have him joining us in the conversation. Stay with us. That discussion is up next here on The Culture or the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We have been talking to Dr. Jason Nichols, talking about the latest efforts by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to try to rewrite the narrative about what's going on in his state as he has officially become a candidate for the president of the United States. He's going down to different states around the country where he's touting these talking points, talking about everything from gun control to, or the lack thereof, to educational achievement, putting out there that, you know what, in certain cities like Baltimore, Chicago, that a child has a better chance of getting shot than they are getting a quality education. I've been talking to my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, about this. And of course, I want to hear your take on this, folks. Doc, I want to bring you back into this. So let's look at what is the potential downfall? Like what could possibly happen? Because Trump used the same playbook. I remember, him going around the country when he was running for president. One of his big infamous speeches is, "What do you have to lose? Your schools are crap. You're getting shot at. Democratic leadership has failed you for the 50 years. What do you have to lose?" I remember that Meek Mill put that part of his speech on a song called "The Other Side of America," because it was just, and I think to a lot of black people at that time when Trump made that statement, it resonated with some black folk, to cause some black men and some black women to say, you know what, I'm going to go with Trump in this election, right? But it doesn't connect the dots. And this is the problem, and I think this is where we get minds like yourself and other political scientists who can help us to connect the dots to understand how government works, how money in government works. Because you say guns and then you say schooling, which are two different things, two different problems that are handled in the two different specific ways when it comes to government. So can you help us connect the dots on this thing, bro? Because these talking points are going to come up as Mike Pence is talking about running, Chris Christie, all these GOP folks are going to start running. And I know that they're going to be spitting some of these talking points that do not connect the dots.
Absolutely. First of all, and one of the things Trump said also is you're living in hell. That's where his words.
Right. Oh yeah. That one.
You're living in hell. And right. my thing is, look, you gave us hell and we created a home out of it. You know what I mean? Black folks have done more with less than any group that I've ever seen in history. But this idea of calling our communities hell, that to me is an acknowledgement, a tacit acknowledgement of systemic racism, and the position that redlining and a lot of these historic forms of discrimination, restrictive covenants, redlining, police brutality, put us in, underfunding our schools. So again, they put us, or white supremacy, I shouldn't say white supremacy put us in a difficult position. And the idea, I understand the impulse. I've talked to some people who have said, you know what, I'm gonna vote for Trump just to blow the whole thing up. I don't think he's gonna be good or anything. I think I'm just annoyed and I'm just gonna blow the whole thing up. That doesn't work. We saw that. You know what I mean? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't make anything better. And the system still remains. So what I would say is your dollars matter. That's something that we should learn from 1955, from the Montgomery bus boycott. We know your dollars matter. And your votes matter. And those are two areas short of a full-on revolution that you can make change. I think the other thing is holding politicians accountable. I think a lot of Democratic politicians, particularly on the local level, continue to get elected, regardless of whether they're corrupt, whether they are, they're not interested in actually helping people, whether they're incompetent. Sometimes on local levels, we continue to just vote for the names we know because we're afraid of names we don't. One of the things that I always tell my students is you can run for office. You can run for school board. We're worried right now around the country about them, Ron DeSantis and others trying to change our school curriculum. You know why they're able to do that? Is because school boards are acquiescing. What if you and a couple of your neighbors ran for the school board? You know what I mean? Why don't we get more black parents on the school board, more black parents running the PTAs? And then you can say, hold up. And even if you're not going to run, being at those school board meetings and advocating for your children and for their history. I think we really need to get more active. We were all excited. We had to see dead Black bodies in the street in order to get active, after Trayvon Martin and in this kind of Black Lives Matter era that seems to have come to an end. We need to get active over our kids' futures, over the things that can actually make a difference for our kids moving forward. I remember, I'll never forget this guy. He was a chaplain. May God rest him. He was a chaplain at the University of Maryland. And I remember we were having a conversation because we were starting this program for young students to go and volunteer with incarcerated youth in DC. And I remember he said to me, he said, Jason, these kids get forgotten. And it seems that Black Lives Matter once you're dead. And I'll never forget that. It was like a bullet to the chest. Black Lives Matter once you're dead. And so I want us to think about our kids, the living kids. And yes, we want them to learn their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but we think everybody should learn Black history. Right. Because of the history of America. Don't let them whitewash your history. Don't let them turn enslaved Africans and the cruelty that we faced and persevered through into laborers from Africa, came over by and worked for free. You know what I mean? Right. Don't let them change make America stare its history in the face. If I could put that on a hat, I would wear it. You know what I mean? Make America look at its own reflection. And that is important so that, we're not doomed to repeat those kinds of histories, just in a different form. So I think there's a lot of things that we need to do. We need to get that same energy that we did when we saw Black people shot down in the street. We need to have that to protect our children's education, to make sure that our names and our dollars are respected. We need to have that same energy.
Dr. Jason, I've got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, folks, I want to continue the conversation. Crew, hit me up. Let me know your thoughts. Because Dr. Jason Nichols is dropping some jewels right now. So let me know what your take is as we're talking about what the state of Florida is doing as they try to fire back at that NAACP travel advisory and the larger conversation about Black folks in big cities, Baltimore, Chicago, Dallas, New York, Los Angeles, Memphis, anywhere, right? Atlanta, big conversations that folks are having about schooling, about guns, the conversation about safety and health and well-being. I mean, these are all big conversations that folks are having all across this country. And it's going to be brought to the forefront because now you got Republican candidates who are lining up to say that they are qualified to be the next president of the United States, but not without some baggage. Folks, stay with me. More conversation on the other side, right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. and this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking about what's been happening in the state of Florida. I've been checking it with my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, to get his take on what Governor Ron DeSantis had to say about Baltimore, Chicago, and how he thinks the governor, what his take on the governor's view about education, especially quality education. I want to bring my brother back in for a few more moments, but I do want to go to a couple of the crew members, Doc, who have been checking in about this whole conversation. My brother, Willie Frazier, he said, let's talk about how none of the beaches here in Florida have been repaired, and we are in hurricane season. Why are we handing out school vouchers and the state lottery is supposed to fund the schools? Now, Willie's down there in Orlando, so he's seeing that, but he's talking about the beaches and school vouchers. So it's funny how a person who is running for a major role like the president of the United States still has some unfinished business left in their own state, their own jurisdiction, but then want to crap on others' jurisdictions for not covering down on what they're supposed to do. How is that good politics, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not, but he grew a national profile with his so-called anti-woke movement, even though he really can't define what woke is. But they sit there and they realize that, first of all, we created the term woke. Black folks created the term woke. It goes all the way back to Lead Belly, in like the 1920s, and it's been revived several times. But again, this is, so when they use woke in that pejorative sense, it is tacit anti-blackness. So we should recognize it as such. It's when you take something Black people create, whether it's the word woke, whether it's the word critical race or the term critical race theory, and then say, we don't care what Black people meant by it. This is what we're going to say it means. That means you really don't care what Black people think. You really don't care what the things that Black people create. And so, I think we need to recognize that Florida, as someone stated, has some of the highest insurance rates in the country. Florida is still and a state that has high insurance and, of course, is susceptible to all kinds of natural disasters and storms.
Right.
But Ron DeSantis doesn't care about that. He goes after Disney. He loses Disney's development, which was going to be $1 billion and 2,000 jobs. He goes after immigrants and says, by the way, that if a friend or a family member even drives with an immigrant in a car, that they are subject to a class 3 felony. So you could have a friend, your Jamaican friend, you don't even know his immigration status. and they'll sit there and charge you with a class 3 felony. You know,
right.
your Haitian friend, your Jamaican friend, your Dominican friend. And here he is. Of course, it applies to you, citizen, but not to him when he's chartering flights and trafficking immigrants across state lines, you know, and sending them to Martha's Vineyard. So again, this is a guy, by the way, he's smug, he's angry, he's not good at retail politics. He's not particularly articulate. He's not charismatic. He doesn't have what Trump has. Trump has some sort of star power. You know, as much as I don't like the guy, I can admit he has this kind of anti-Obama star power talent.
Right. It works for him. It works for him.
It works for him. But
it works for him.
DeSantis doesn't have that. Even Joe Biden is really good at retail politics. If Joe Biden walks in a room, everyone at the end of that room, at the end of the event, could be 300 people in there. Everybody's going to have shook Joe Biden's hand and know Joe Biden's name. That's the kind of politician he is. DeSantis is like small. He's not good at any of that. And yet, with these policies that are largely anti-Black and anti-brown, he's been able to elevate himself. But what you're going to see, I believe, is that this is the end of DeSantis's political career. He's going to lose this primary to Donald Trump, despite Donald Trump's.
But he still stays as governor, though.
What's that?
He still stays as governor.
Yeah, he still stays as governor because he made the change
right,
to allow himself.
Right. Hey, Jason, he put in a fail-safe method so he don't become completely irrelevant. He uses the state legislators to make sure that he can stay as governor, which is crazy and insane.
Right. And then he's going to,
insane, bro.
After his term is over, what is he going to do? Is he going to run for Senate? He's going to run against Marco Rubio.
He might open up his own PAC or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he could do that, but his electoral political career is in jeopardy because I don't think in 2028, I think that there are more talented politicians on the GOP side that are to come. I think someone like a Chris Sununu or someone like a Glenn Youngkin will come along and they'll beat Ron DeSantis. So I don't think Ron DeSantis has a future there. He could run for Senate, but then he has to run against, Marco Rubio, who's an incumbent. It'll be a tough race, or he'll have to run against the Medicare chief, Rick Scott. So either way, those are really tough races against people who are either long-term senators or former governors. So
I'm glad that you laying out what his path could look like, and I think it's important for us to keep in mind that this is how politics is. But it's unfortunate when the people, and I'm speaking of the American people, when we don't have leadership that truly reflects us. Search for Spock. You checked in and said, "I'll stay the floor." We got like 1 minute left, but I wanted to bring up your comment. Search for Spock. You said our state of Florida is thriving in all communities. We never were shut down over the COVID lie. And we have an awesome governor and representation for all. I got to ask, Search for Spock, are you a part of the LGBTQ community? Are you a part of the Black and brown community in the state of Florida? Are you a part of any minority business owner? Because how can a person who's not been inflicted, who has not been violated or oppressed, say that all is well? If you're not part of any of those communities, you can't say that. I love when people be like, "No, man, America is great," because you haven't been on the other end of the heel. You haven't been underneath the knee of somebody else.
He might
so of course America's going to be great to you until your rights get violated. And then when white people start to feel their rights, and look at what happens in this country. And this is the unfortunate. This ain't racism, folks. This is the truth. We black folks can talk about the law enforcement system and all of those things all day long. And if a white person gets their rights violated, they get pulled out of a car, they get beat up by police, right? Then they say, oh, this got to stop. This is a damn shame. As if we didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Get out of here with that garbage search response. You talking about it's all good. How can you live in such a blind state where you say it's all good? We got the best governor, representation for all, diversity lives here. You ain't a part of no community that has been oppressed, violated, marginalized, or disenfranchised. Of course. Jock, talk to me.
Yeah, I was just going to say Search for Spock, honestly, might be part of the Moscow community. You know, that might be a Russian. You know, I'm not sure that's an American. But if it is, you know, he has certainly the right to express himself and express what he believes. And
absolutely.
You know, there are people out there, even in Florida, you got your Byron Donalds and others who you know, will make that argument. It's usually for some sort of personal gain. It's not because they, number one, are part of those communities or even travel to those communities, and will find a way, if they do, to blame those communities rather than look at the leadership that puts them in that position or does nothing to actually change that position. So again, if you don't believe that there's systemic or institutional racism, you'll do nothing to change it. And
that's it.
The status quo, and people there in Opelika will have the same conditions. The people in Liberty City will have the same conditions. The people in Jacksonville will live under the same conditions because leadership won't be motivated to change a challenge, to address a challenge that they don't even recognize exists.
Wow, there it is. There it is. Dr. Jason Nichols is a lecturer for the University of Maryland for the African Americans Studies Department. Doc, always a pleasure, man. You know, when Baltimore comes up in a conversation, you and I got to talk about it because we want to dispel any myths about the hometown. Yeah, Baltimore is struggling, but plus, trust and believe. I'd rather live in Baltimore than some of these other places around the country, right?
Absolutely. For sure.
There it is right there, Dr. Jason Nichols. Make sure y'all follow him on all social media platforms and definitely check out his podcast as well. All right, Doc, good to talk to you, bro. We'll reconnect soon.
Yes, sir.
Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's have the conversation with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, if you missed the first hour of the discussion or the first few minutes of the discussion, make sure you do your due diligence. Let me get my words out. Make sure you do your due diligence and go check us back and be a part of Team Replay, as my sister Suzette speaks often say. You can check out the show at the first hour and get caught up on some of the big conversations that we're having here on The Culture on blackstarnetwork.com and Amazon News. All right, folks, it is Monday, and we always check in with our resident doctor to talk to us about some of the big health and wellness needs that we need to keep our eyes open for. So let's jump in for another installment of this week's segment for Reclaim Your Wellness with Dr. Bridget, MD. Dr. Dr. Bridget, good afternoon. How are you, sister?
Great. It's good to see you, Farajii.
First and foremost, Doc, always appreciate having you on the show to drop some jewels for us. There's a lot to talk about. I saw so many articles, and if y'all don't know, like behind the scenes, I'd be sending Doc stuff. She'd be sending me stuff. She gets stuff from the weirdest sources. Stuff I'm like, I didn't even know this existed. Okay, I should say, Farajii, I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. No problem. We can talk about it. But today you got to talk about something you wanted to talk about, or at least kind of give us some understanding of the situation around the unfortunate death of reality show star Jackie O, who died on for lack of a better word, can we say she died on the operating table, as she was getting what they term as a mommy makeover. What is all of that? And first and foremost, our condolences go out to the family of Jackie O, who was the girlfriend for DC Young Fly. So very cultural, kind of, infamously cultural couple. But this was a sad situation, because outside of the lights and the cameras of everything, people are really putting themselves in position to try to change how they look, to try to do something for their body, do something for their physical beauty, and all of these things. And unfortunately, some of these procedures are just not safe. I can think back to what we saw with Kanye West's mom, Donda West. Rest in peace to Miss Donda. But you know what I mean? When you hear stories like that, stories that's just, it just seems like they come out of nowhere, and then a tragedy comes into the picture. It's really sad. So what is the situation around the mommy makeover, Doc?
Absolutely. So first of all, when it comes to Jackie O, there's not a whole lot that we know about it right now. Her partner is the DJ on Nick Cannon's show. I can't remember. Wildin' Out, yes.
Yeah.
And so there's been some information on the social media that they actually started pulling down. But what we understand is that she was doing one of these mommy makeovers down in Miami, most likely had some sort of complication on the operating table. And they're pulling back a little bit on what the exact cause was. Was it the anesthesia? Was it a complication? Was it what actually led to it? Is they started sharing a lot of information and they pulled back. So in the beginning, I wanted to kind of dig a lot deeper into this. I'd like to know more before we point any fingers, but it doesn't take away from the subject that women feel the pressure to look a certain way, and we always want to feel our best. But these mommy makeovers and these surgeries have become incredibly popular. And so the question is, what are we willing to sacrifice for a certain look or a certain body? And are we willing to die for it? And that's really, what we're talking about right now. And it comes from so many different sides, right? Because it's how you feel about yourself. And I want everyone to improve their appearance and their soul and their intelligence so that they feel good about themselves at the end of the day. But a lot of that comes from a lot of societal pressure. It comes from the people that you love and live with sometimes, and family as well. And so this whole mommy makeover, basically having extensive surgery to your body, typically after having children. And because, let's be honest, the pregnancy has a lot of wear and tear on women's bodies. If we were waiting for men to have children and deal with that, we probably would go extinct at this point. And
come on. No men shaming right now, Doc. No men shaming. Just keep it on the medical stuff.
I'm just saying, but if we're waiting around, we all might not be here right now. So, but yeah, it's a lot of wear and tear on your body as well as mentally. So I get it. And I understand the pressure of it. But we have to decide, are we willing to die for it? Now, keep in mind, I'm not putting any significant, blame, at least at this point, on that surgical team. When you're doing 1 million surgeries a year, and statistically things will happen, it doesn't mean that there was something at fault necessarily, but obviously this is a young woman in her 30s that is no longer with us. So I'm really kind of turning this on, our audience to really take a closer look. And is a mommy makeover something that you're willing to do, and to what extent are you willing to do it?
So first, for those who aren't familiar with this this part of the culture, right? Like mommy makeovers. This is something, and I'm hearing, unfortunately, a lot of women are putting themselves underneath the knife, whether they want to do enhancement or whether they're trying to take something off. So is it more a cultural thing that women are putting themselves in harm's way, potential harm's way, when they decide to do these procedures? Is that just because of the cultural influences? But what's at the root of it? Do you have clients that are, that you talk to about, these type of surgeries, these type of procedures, and what's their mindset as to why they want to go forward with this?
I had someone yesterday making a joke about, it's a long story, but making a joke basically about mommy makeovers. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea here is, I don't know if it's just pressure that women put on themselves. I think it's our youth obsessed culture, right? And that men gain value with achievements. Women gain value with appearance.
Woo, wait a minute. Hold on, Doc. See, I told you I knew this was going to happen. You do this every Monday.
Bashing. That's not bashing.
No, I'm not talking about bashing. I'm just saying you're dropping jewels. Dropping jewels. Are you saying men gain value with achievements?
Yes.
Women gain value with their appearance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I've not, that 100% true. And we try to alter our culture to be somewhat different. And of course, we encourage our children, and we encourage our girls to receive degrees and to move up the ladder. But at the end of the day, we put a lot of pressure on women as far as their appearance. We put a lot of pressure on women as far as they gain value in being married. Men don't gain value in being married. Men don't necessarily need to gain value necessarily in their appearance. The more they achieve, the more value they have. When we talk about the 1% or the high earning or high value man, people aren't necessarily looking at their appearance. They're talking about their earnings. But when we talk about the high valued woman, we're talking about the way they look, right? And so there's no wonder that women feel the pressure to go under a complete body makeover to return their body to a more youthful body, typically. And so, I think we need to look a little bit closer. I will often see women of every shape and size, some of them loving every aspect of their body and every, curve along the way. And they tend to have someone in their corner that is loving that body without the pressure of saying you should be different, who's not ogling someone that looks younger. And so I think it's not just how we feel about ourselves, but it's also who we keep our company with. And
I gotta stop. I want to pause right there because we got to take another pause. When we come forward, I want to delve a little deeper in that crew. I want you to join us in this conversation as we checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. What are your thoughts about what Dr. Bridget? What are you picking up from what Dr. Bridget is putting down, folks? But she's giving us some understanding about these things, and more importantly, about how far we will go to look beautiful in this culture. Join us in the discussion as we stream it live on YouTube, Black Star Network, and Amazon News. And of course, stay tuned. This is The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, who is a board-certified family physician. She's a cannabis expert and physician. She's also a life coach. She's also an author. And she's just breaking it down about the culture and the talk around mommy makeovers in light of the unfortunate tragedy of the death of reality star Jackie O, and who was also the longtime partner for DC Young Fly, the DJ for Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out show. It took the industry kind of went on, there was some grief that was expressed over social media after hearing the news of Jackie, Dr. Bridget. But, when I do hear these stories, I often wonder, what is the industry doing to clamp down on these type of procedures being done? Because and someone asked, one of our crew members asked this question, and I think it's a great question. Let me make sure. Let me see who posted. Oh, Ramona J. You say plastic surgery has been around for decades. Are Black patients the only ones dying? Are these certified surgeons? So two big questions. Black folks, are we the only one dying on the table here, or from these procedures? And who's doing this stuff? Is the industry that you're working in, medical industry and the cosmetology, the cosmetic industry, are they clamping down, or is this just like completely uncontrolled here?
So definitely not clamping down on it. Now, keep in mind that we're talking about a number of different procedures, and I'll give you some numbers here in a second. Typically, to do surgery in a hospital, you have to have certain credentials, right? And so to question whether they were board certified or what their credentials are, typically to be in the hospital, you have to meet a certain qualification to be able to do surgery specifically in that hospital. So that's one thing. But we're talking about anything between, the butt implants to the silicone, which you can get that from your neighbor, to going into the hospital and having fat transplants to do these BBLs. I mean, we're talking about there's some procedures that are approached from different aspects that can lead to problems, right? And then what I'm talking about today are specifically the plastic surgery that is usually an entire physical makeover. So I want to give you some numbers here, that the American Society of Plastic Surgeons have been looking at this whole mommy makeover procedures as well. Women had nearly 112,000 tummy tucks in 2010. Okay. That is up 85% since 2000. So between 2000 and honestly, I think we all live our lives a little bit of before COVID and after COVID, right?
Right.
And after we have been sitting, doing Zooms all day, sitting really in your thoughts all day, our culture made even more of a shift. We got the stimulus check. Who knows what's going on? But during that period of time, tummy tucks went up 85%. 90,000 breast lifts were up 70%, and 296,000 breast augmentations were up 39%.
And that was these are 2010 numbers.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. That's from 2000 to 2010. So even beyond that, it's gone up. Yes.
Right. So we're talking about over the past 13 years, we could see an even more dramatic increase in all of these procedures.
Yes, absolutely. So even during that period of time, there's been and these things are just more accessible, right? That we have more financing companies that will finance plastic surgery now, or not only plastic surgery, but just different types of elected procedures that were not even a thought before then, right? So we really have to look at what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what is going to be the ultimate issues that develop from it.
I want to get your take on this because Pretty Brown Mimi 2726, you posted something, and I think this is like the chicken or the egg debate. What's the internal motivation for women? Is it to appeal to men more, or is it appeal to herself? Because Pretty Brown Mimi put it out there. Can some of y'all men please start falling in love with natural women again? So are women doing this out of a sense like they want to appeal to men? Because I come across men all the time, Doc, that are like, oh, we love the natural woman body. We don't need, it's your body. It's the whole swag, quote unquote, that the women brings, that level of confidence, how she is comfortable in her own skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not seeing guys, I don't have friends in my circle. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't have homeboys or brothers in my circle, men in my circle that's like, hey, man, my wife gotta have one. My girl has to have, the tummy tuck, and she has to have a more bigger bust or her backside. I'm not coming across, but obviously there are men like that exist. So I'm wondering the internal motivation for women. Is it to appeal to men? Because we heard that. We heard that about that women in the industry. I'm thinking about, I forgot the sister's name, that did a complete makeover. I can hardly see her face. She's a singer, but she said she kind of regrets it now.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Michelle, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or is it more about, hey, you know what? I am not happy with my body. Therefore, I tried the diet. I tried working out. I tried this. I tried that. Let me go to surgery and get it, taken off permanently and all of that. So what's the internal motivation?
I think it comes from both sides. I mean,
okay.
So there are men that are not vocalizing that, and they probably don't feel that. It's also very important that they instill that love into their partners as well, so that if the woman is feeling that, whether it's pressure from society or what have you, that she begins to love herself again. I think we're talking about physical changes, but there is a mental change once you cross over from being, a woman on your own to being a woman with children, and what that does to you mentally and physically. And I think we don't do enough to help with that transition. I think it's, we're strong, we're capable, we're happy, you have these children, you should be, over the moon, but there is a transition there that we don't really acknowledge. And when society is telling you up until that point, your value is your appearance, and then now they're going to say, well, maybe not so much. Look, there needs to be more to support women during these transitions. And to be honest, it can't just be, your guy at home that's saying it, when our culture puts so much pressure on youth and on young, youthful bodies, and we don't celebrate women at every stage of their beauty, then that's when it becomes much more difficult. So,
well, talk to us a little bit, and we got another minute before we take our next pause. But Mike V checked in. Mike, you said something. You said it's body dysmorphia. Is that, how prevalent is that in our culture right now, Doc?
It can be that, obviously that is going all the way to saying it's much more of a mental health issue, which I think that is what develops, right? That you have internal issues of disliking yourself, and you try to find a way to express it and get it out and to fix it. The thing is that, I've told you before, I'm a medical director of a medical spa where we're doing Botox and laser hair removal and anything under the sun. And I'm very conscious of the woman that comes in because she wants to fix something that she's not happy with. And that's a very different woman that comes in and is unhappy with everything that she's experiencing. They can have the same outcome, but very different. They feel very differently about it because it has nothing to do with the physical. They are using that as it's the one thing they can control or try to control, but they're never necessarily at peace with it. So body dysmorphia is a huge issue and can be a part of it for some of these women.
Look, we got to take another pause, but Doc, when we come forward, I want to kind of get your take on how do we have these conversations, not in a more proactive way versus a reactive way. And you're talking about like mental health. We're talking about societal and cultural pressures of all of these things. Is there a way for us to bring some balance, to bring some I would say the balance to this? Because it seems like our culture is much more extreme when it comes to how we look and how we present ourselves to the world, how much emphasis we put on the outside of us instead of the inside. So we do need to bring some balance. So I'd love to get your take on that when we come forward. Folks, as you continue to join us in the conversation, post your thoughts. We're streaming right now on YouTube right now, streaming on blackstarnetwork.com and Amazon News. And stay with us. More conversations about what's happening in the culture as it relates to our bodies and our minds with Dr. Bridget for this week's segment of Reclaim Your Wellness right here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland. Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. Dr. Bridget giving us some very, very good insight about this culture of mommy makeovers, this culture of us wanting to make ourselves look better, make ourselves a little bit more attractive in some way, shape, and form, enhancement procedures. And I want to bring Dr. Bridget back into the frame as we have this discussion. Doc, I mean, there's a lot of conversation that's happening on our chat right now among the crew on YouTube about this whole thing. People are saying that, my brother Damon Blissett, he said, for example, he said that this is, he loves the natural woman, but it's Hollywood putting this out. But my only thinking about that is that we as people, we can say, as men, we can say, I love the natural woman. A woman can say, look, I love myself. But when we see Hollywood, we approve or validate people because we spend our money to see them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? For example, we don't pay hundreds of dollars to see Beyonce just for singing. We want to see her body, right? We want to see her body move. Same thing on the men's side, that we as much as we can say it, we also invest in the other side of it.
Right.
I hope you understand what I'm saying, because there has to be some balance between what we say we like and then what we are conditioned to like.
Well, I think there's been some changes. And I say that because 10 years ago, there wasn't someone that was pushing the body positivity like Lizzo, right?
Right.
Every time you turn around.
She wilded out on somebody recently about her body shaming, that she was wilding out some trolls like a couple of days ago.
Right. I do.
Just recently. Yeah.
And that shows you that even though we're talking about her and body positivity, she's still fighting that same battle on a regular, right? Despite her success and everything else, she still has to fight the fact that people will say something about her appearance and her weight. And she's a beautiful girl inside out, the whole deal, but still has to fight that, which is unfortunate. And we now, every time I turn around, there's something about a fupa. Like it's, I had to catch up to even know what we were talking about in the beginning, right? But
fupa.
Right?
No? Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with the fupa. I'm just letting people know. People know, like, hey, it's a part of life. Like, you can't look. I think it's funny, Doc. Very quickly, I think it's funny when like men in particular say, "Oh, I want a woman to be boom, 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 boom," and then you be like, "Joke, are you even going to the gym?
I know. Right?
Are you even taking a walk outside to the mailbox? I mean, what are you doing?"
But this is the other thing that catches me, that if women believe, this is the pressure. If women believe they got that man by having a certain body, it is very uncomfortable, because now you believe you will lose that same man if you don't look at when you got him. And my answer to that, it's not your body. Be confident that that is not what got that man. Be confident that that is not what got that job. Make sure that you're investing yourself in every way, so that when your body changes, it's simply a growth in who you are in time and in life. And be confident that you are more than your body. And so that's one thing. The other thing is that it's also a lot of pressure for literally, in some ways, your body changes overnight. And I say that because we're talking about the mommy makeover, right? And you go through this 9 months of pregnancy and you're excited about it, and and your body changing, all the above. Most women believe that as soon as you have your baby, your body's going to go right back to where it was before, right? Or if you know better, then you are honestly sitting during this pregnancy saying, okay, even though I'm having a healthy pregnancy and I'm doing the right things for my baby, I don't know what I'm going to look like when I'm done. It literally changes overnight, because you accept the pregnancy body, but you don't know what you're going to get when you're done, or how you're going to adjust to that. And we don't have in this day and age, when so much is put on what we look like physically, we need more support in that area. So the other aspect that people need to consider is that you're looking at people in Hollywood or in social media that literally they have a baby, and when you see them next, they got washboard abs, and don't believe that, because they're the ones that got the mommy makeover. But you don't see that. And so you literally see someone that's pregnant, maybe, and then a couple months down the road, they don't want to show their child, blah, blah, whatever. And then a couple months later, they have the same body they had before pregnancy, or better. Like, about it, right? And so you're sitting there, and it's hard for women to adjust to that. And so, I really want women to kind of take a step back and realize that their value is much more beyond their body, and that accept time and change, and do what feels good for you to change. And I'm not knocking surgery, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right. And can we say, Doc, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because this is something that I've always been taught. Can we say that every woman and every man's body responds differently to major changes, whether it's weight gain for women, of course, whether it's having a baby, whether it's us getting older, your diet starts to change, the living situation, whether it's your stress, the places that you're living, like this all has an impact on your body and how your body moves and how your body functions. Is that accurate to say?
100%. There's some genetic touch to how your body develops over time. And obviously your body type is very similar to the other women in your family or what have you, and how they responded to pregnancy may be how you respond. But to be honest, there's so many, a multitude of factors that are related to that you should not also feel doomed in any way to any particular type, but love the type that you are.
Yeah. Love the type that you are. Look, I'm going to take another pause. When we come forward, Doc, I want you to give us some more thoughts for us to walk away with. And I know you got some other things that you could bring to our attention as well. Mm-hmm. But I think, and I'm seeing the conversation in the chat among the crew members, this really strikes a chord with a lot of people, regardless of race, economic background. Like this idea of having a healthy self-image. Really resonates with a lot of folks, and even grown folks like us, whether in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and 60s, we are still challenged by the fact of, are we looking like our best selves? Can we do something? And, for a man like me, I'm like, damn, does this kind of internal debate ever end? Do you ever get to a point to say, you know what? I am happy about who I look like how I look, how I present myself to the world. I'm happy about the skin that I'm in. I'm happy about my imperfections. Does that, all of the internal chatter, does that ever just like cease to exist?
I think that's an individual basis, right? And it doesn't mean that for the person where it does go away, that they reach some goal. No.
Yeah.
I think when you get to a point, and keep in mind, when you get to a point of loving yourself, this external shell that you're housed in becomes less and less important about the self-esteem that you carry. You might work on it because you believe in having, feeling good and feeling healthy, but how it affects your self-esteem, I think, changes with real self-love.
I got to talk about that, folks. We're going to have to talk about that with the doc when we come forward. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We've been talking and chopping it up with Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment, talking about body makeover, mommy makeovers, body enhancement procedures, and how we make ourselves look better, present ourselves better to the world. And the doc has been just dropping some jewels, giving us some food for thought as we talk about, those who have made the decision to get on the operating table, or those who have left the operating table, or those who are just kind of sitting on the sidelines and just watching how the culture is changing, how we see ourselves. It's a lot to take in. But I'm happy that we got my sister, Dr. Bridget, joining us just to help us to cut through all of the internal chatter that we are all exposed to. And I think that's the part about this. You ended your comment before the pause. You talked about the importance of self-love, and I'm so happy that you brought that up, that we got to this place in the conversation. Because without any of that, Dr. Bridget, and you know this as you are a health and wellness professional, if there is no self-love, like we cannot even have a conversation about having a healthy view of self. We can't have a conversation about the value of eating well or exercising or any of this stuff if you don't have that love of self. Now, is that too much to put on you as the medical professional to be like, hey, Dr. Bridget, I need you to help me to love myself again? Because I think a lot of people are looking outside of themselves instead of on the inside to figure out how to make those changes.
I think it's worthy of a conversation. And I say that because, every doctor is not going to do all this that we're doing, right? But I think if doctors know where you're coming from, if they know this is something that you're battling, I think it helps, right? Because then they know maybe how to approach certain things. Because I will tell you, the worst thing that I see with my colleagues is that, the patient comes in, has, arthritis in their knees, lose weight, you're fat, sometimes worse. Come back when you've lost. And
you mean you tell your patients that?
I don't, but I have colleagues. I don't. No, I don't say
no, I'm not saying. No, there's a way to say that you need to lose some weight in a very, in a very empowering way. I know that might sound strange, but I think you can say it like
this way. No, you're totally right. And I have colleagues, and I'm sure there are probably people, in the chat here that have heard that or know someone that they've experienced that. And so I do think if they know that you are struggling with this internal dialogue that is pretty much a negative internal dialogue, I think it helps because maybe they can approach things in a much more gentle manner or suggest things on how to get beyond this, because no one wants to stay in this space, right?
Right.
But there's definitely some things I think you can do to move the needle. We talk about self-care and we talk about self-love, but we put ourselves in harm's way, quite a bit. And I think first and foremost, you start health on the inside. Okay. Because if you are physically feeling better, if you're fueling your body better, if you're putting fuel in your body that is good for you, you will feel better. Okay.
Fact.
So start looking, and I'm not talking about weight loss. I'm talking about what is your fuel? What are you putting in you to make your body work correctly, to be able to give you energy when you need energy and to allow you to sleep when you need to sleep? What are you putting inside? Because once you start hydrating your body well, once you start getting away from some of the more fried foods or heavier foods, eating more naturally, you start to feel better. Once you're feeling better, your body is working better. And then you can possibly start thinking about what else can I do to even look better on the outside? So start.
But that takes, you know what though, Doc, when I hear you say that, the first thing that came to my mind was knowledge.
Yes.
Like when you ask the question, what are you feeding your body? It starts with what are you feeding your thinking, right? Like what are you taking in? What messages are you taking in that is going to give you a healthy self-image? What type of knowledge of foods, what type of knowledge of how you should live? Like that's all knowledge based, right? Because I truly believe this. People, they can be masters of their body, but if you think a certain way, it doesn't matter how nice your body is built up.
Absolutely. No, you like it. Your self-love, if it's not, it doesn't matter what you look on the outside, because there are people every walk of life, absolutely gorgeous, that have so much self-hate you wouldn't even believe it. So it's about what's inside. It's about what you're doing on the inside and then working towards the outside. Another thing that I highly recommend, and I know every woman I know you have the closet with the clothes you wear, And then you've got the other part of it, like in the back there with the sizes you can't wear anymore. And you're holding on to that, thinking, hoping, well, that's not necessarily good for you either. Love this and work towards something new, because when you lose that weight, you're buying a whole new wardrobe anyhow. So what are you really holding on to? But that's sitting there every time you open the door and look in the closet. If you're seeing someone that is no longer there, how many of us really want to return back to our 20s? That person, not that look, but that
I don't.
No, not at all.
I don't. No.
And so why are we holding on to it, right? Why are we holding on to that, and for what reason? I also really recommend taking a little bit of a break from social media. If you are locked in and that's the first thing you're doing in the morning, and every time you turn around, you're back on some reels and what have you, and you're not necessarily really seeing healthy images. You're seeing images that sometimes make you second guess yourself, and also make you question your own culture, like who you want to be and how you want to behave in it. Know yourself, be you, and let that be your culture, right? And be around people that support that culture, that healthy culture, because we look on the outside so much and we're highly influenced. And of course, our younger people are even more influenced, but let you create your culture is what I'm saying.
Right. I love that. You just dropped the jewel. I might have that on the board one day. Be you, be your own culture.
Be your own culture. I often say, if you see a commercial for food on the billboard when you're going down the highway, or if you often see many times a commercial on TV, that's probably what you're not supposed to be eating. And think about it, right? Like
let me tell you, when I've traveled across this country, I saw more billboards for the most fattening foods ever.
Exactly.
Fast food. Y'all know, y'all seen them like Waffle Houses, big breakfast spots. I'm not gonna put no names out there, but y'all know what I'm talking about. They get 4 pancakes on the plate with the bacon and the eggs and the hash browns. You want to take a quick stop. Be like, a quick stop, bro. That's an overnight meal. You know what I'm saying? Like we love to keep people fat in this country. We love to keep people unhealthy in this country, and we can't even really say it, quote unquote, because of political correctness in some places. But it's not to shame.
Right.
It's not to shame. Chris, you checked in. Chris Begg, he said something that I thought was pretty interesting. He said one thing. He said this culture of live your best life got y'all dying at 50 in a country with a life expectation almost double that. We want to tell people live your best life, all of that stuff. But then the powers that be, the forces that really, push the culture, they like, oh, live your best life, but live your best life drinking. Live your best life. Live your best life eating a lot of food and taking a lot of high fructose corn syrup, and live your best life at the dinner table.
So that's what, even when you said that, I think probably for most people in the chat, and as well as for myself, my question is, what does your best life even mean? And unfortunately, I think most of the time it means extravagant living, food, it's about living to the highest, right? And what that means to people varies depending on, what they value. But I will tell you something my brother always told me is live a simple life.
What's the difference?
Keeping it simple means that it's not extravagant. It is satisfying. It is what you need and not what you want. A simple life it is not abundance.
Yeah.
It is simply getting what you need instead of always focusing on your want that leaves you empty.
Wow.
Right?
We're going to pause that right there because I got to take a break. But Doc, I want to thank you because you're dropping some good stuff. And I know that a lot of people have gained from what you shared. Very quickly, is there going to be an after chat where you have a conversation at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight to kind of go further in this space?
Yes, absolutely. So we'll meet at 5:30 on Dr. Bridget MD on Instagram Live. we'll continue this. You know, I want to talk about vitamins today, but we'll talk about a little bit about that as well. And and I think it's important because I'm going to challenge people, and I'm with you on this, that I challenge you to live a healthier life, and to build a culture that supports you. And I'm willing to do it with you. So
that's awesome. Dr. Bridget, y'all can check her out every Monday, God willing, here on The Culture, but you can follow her on all social media platforms at Dr. Bridget. You can follow her on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. She has her after chat where she talks about these conversations and take them to the next level. Make sure y'all tune in for her after chat on Instagram at Dr. Bridget MD, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And she can go into more details, especially talking about this mommy makeover enhancement thing. And then, of course, she's going to drop some jewels about vitamins. But, Doc, I truly, truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show again. Thank you. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon, sometime next week or next Monday, really.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
If you haven't.
Thank you, Dr. Bridget. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more to some final remarks about what's happening with the culture and you. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. What a great segment that we just had with Dr. Bridget for our Reclaim Your Wellness. Man, oh man, big shout out to y'all as the crew for bringing up some great points, for bringing up some great thoughts around this issue of makeovers and body enhancements. Big conversation. Again, folks, make sure y'all join Dr. Bridget today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to get more information about body enhancements, mommy makeovers, vitamins, all of that on her IG page at Dr. Bridget MD. All right, for the final part of this show, which has been a fantastic show, I wanted to just announce that I've been seeing, as we talk about politics, we've been talking about Florida. Now it's starting to shape up, folks. The GOP candidates are starting to line up. Today, it was announced that former Vice President Mike Pence has officially filed paperwork for him to run as president of the United States. Yes, y'all remember Mike Pence, the vice president under Donald Trump. He has officially filed paperwork. So now many people are starting to say, oh, he might be, it's going to be a little hot in the GOP. Along with him making announcements, he's expecting to make an official announcement on Wednesday that he's planning to run for the highest seat in the country. Along with him, Chris Christie is expected to make an announcement about running for president, the former governor of the state of New Jersey. And some other GOP hopefuls are looking to join the field that is growing to run against Donald Trump. Now, will they prevail? That's going to be the big question. And that is going to be the big question that is going to be behind it. There it is right there, folks. So you got a couple of those faces. This is what the GOP is putting out. Let's see what the Democratic Party do. Are they going to have their lineup? Who is going to step up on the Democrat side as the GOP candidates start to emerge? So This will be interesting. And of course, here on The Culture, we're going to do our due diligence to have the conversations about each one of these candidates, what they bring to the conversation, their ideas, and really talk about these things in a balanced, civil way, but at the same time, not shunning away from actual facts and not looking at historical truths in the process. So we're going to have that conversation. But just wanted to make that out there, to put that out there. But I thought it was very interesting that this is going to be very, very interesting as we've been having these big discussions about the presidential election for 2024. I want to thank each and every one of you. We could not get the mayor of Waterloo, Iowa on today, but we're planning to get him tomorrow. So hopefully we can get Mayor Quentin Hart to be on the show to talk to us about what's happening in Waterloo, Iowa. He's the first Black person to be mayor of the city of about 68,000 residents. But he also can give us some insight about Iowa as it relates to the changes in the presidential primary and so much more. So I'm looking forward to that conversation tomorrow. We're going to be checking in with Dr. Sarah Williams, who's also going to be checking and giving us some understanding about some things on the medical side. So we got a lot of great voices this week. You don't want to miss a day of The Culture. Make sure you do your due diligence and continue to support us. If you enjoyed the conversation, even if you disagreed, just know that we at least have a platform that is open to you. And yes, you see it in my promos, folks. This is a conversation between you and me. Let's have the discussion. No other space where you're going to find this level of engagement, this level of interaction, where I'm actually talking to you, hearing from you, wanting to know your thoughts about these things, because they are important. We can't talk about anything happening in this country unless we open up the lines of communication, and that's what the show is all about. So make sure you do your due diligence. Go to blackstarnetwork.com today. Download the app for free. Share the content and support us. Even say, I don't know about it. Okay, if you don't know about it, look at the shows. But just know that we're putting out some fantastic information, especially here on The Culture, where we're having these conversations and trying to have these in a very, very timely, relevant, and truthful manner. Do your due diligence. Support us, because your support means everything to us, and it keeps this engine going for us to have a space to talk about these things, especially as it relates to the interests of Black America. So go to blackstarnetwork.com and support us today. Also follow us on social media at Black Star Network. And you can find me on social media, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can find me at The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and I would love to connect and continue to build the Culture Crew. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it's Roland Martin Unfiltered. So get ready to kick off the week in that big way. And, of course, make sure you support us all as we doing this fantastic week of shows. So whether it's watching Balanced Life, whether it's watching the Pivot, whether it's watching D-Bond's show, whatever the show is, just make sure you support us here on The Culture. All right, stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin. Thank you to my team, Maddie, Keenan, Joel, and my crew, and of course, making sure that the show does well and looks well and sounds well. But I thank you all for tuning in. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Talk to you soon. Peace.